How do you see the world? How do we make sense of the constantly changing, complex systems in which we live? How might we together reimagine our systems, reimagine our ways of seeing and our ways of being in this world? These questions are at the heart of visual facilitation. This weekend, participants are taking a deep dive into visual facilitation, 2 hands-on days of doodling, visualising concepts, using metaphor, diagrams and maps to explore themes related to global citizenship and development education. Over the 2 days, the aim is for the participants to experience the methods in a simple way and then reflect on that experience so that they are ready to take them away and adapt them for their own contexts. We have artists, educators, activists and organisers in the room this weekend. They all come with different skills and knowledge, and after this weekend they will hopefully leave with additional skills that they can put into practice immediately. Even before we pick up a marker, we can start working visually. Participants are getting to know each other here, just using our bodies and an empty room to get a snapshot of who we are as a group. We have a large visual agenda in the room at all times, so participants know what to expect and we can track our progress as we go. It also serves as a reminder of our shared purpose. Paying attention to the environment is important. A facilitator can create the conditions for a positive experience by having visuals on the wall before any work begins. Graphic recording is one of the core tools of visual facilitation. And day 1 of this weekend is very much about this. Participants are learning the basic foundations of graphic recording, which is basically listening and visualising in real time. And then day 2 will be more focused on visual facilitation tools such as systems, diagrams, metaphor and so on. We then brainstorm using post-it notes, all the concepts, ideas, phrases that we would like to be able to visualise. Participants then sort and cluster these post-it notes. This is another core tool in visual facilitation, producing lots and lots of information and then making sense of it, going from divergent to convergent thinking. And how we set the parameters for that sense making is key. When we really stop to think about our visual perception and how we make sense of our world, it opens our mind to the possibility of how we can disrupt the default ways of thinking and behaving, and instead, as Einstein says, invent new ways of thinking, ways that might help us to solve the many problems we have created for ourselves. Even the simple move away from right to left text-based literacy and towards a non-linear visual literacy can produce unexpected new connections in the brain. This is one of the ways that visual facilitation can help us in tackling the big issues of our day.
The role, I think, of creativity and this kind of work is to sort of disrupt that automatic way of thinking and open up the possibility for that slow, deliberative, open thinking that is the space where new ways of thinking can emerge.
With that in mind, participants are now getting to make marks on big paper. We start from the very basics, lines, dots, shapes, and we build towards quickly being able to draw objects and people. The emphasis is on quick, gestural marks to get our meaning across, and it is hard work. Building on these skills, participants then get to visualise a selection of the concepts that they brainstormed earlier. And what is great about this activity is seeing the diversity of ways that people interpret the same phrase.
Put together some of the skills we've already learned today to be able to visualise something quickly in as shorthand a way as you can. And we'll put it all together and then we'll see what we've got. Okay, so the first one is next steps. Growth. Fast fashion. The next one is inspire. Charity mindset. Okay, the next one is values. Empathy. Last one, interdependence. Hopefully we'll have many different interpretations. Okay, and that's a wrap. Markers down, everyone.
The next step is for participants to practice graphic recording, and we're using an audio track. They are listening, organising, interpreting and drawing in real time. We do this a second time, but using a more free-flowing group conversation, and this creates the opportunity for participants to practice a deeper kind of listening and recording.
And we want to give them the skills to be able to talk about global justice issues in a way that engages both the head in a kind of cognitive, fact-based way and information way, engages the hands in a very practical way, creative way. We can make and do things, and in a heart way, in a way that engages our emotions and makes us feel something, makes us care about something.
After all the hard work of day one, we start off day two with a playful exercise to visualise some data. Statistics are really important in development education, but it can be a challenge to bring them to life. I've given the participants some numbers and selection of random materials. I've asked them to create an experience for the rest of us. So let's see what they come up with.
As we went into this exercise as part of the visual facilitation course for creativity and change, we were trying to access some of the tools that we had learned, including collaboration and the facilitation tools that we had just been working on this morning, but bringing in some of the visuals that we had learned yesterday, trying to see if we could quickly illustrate a concept and mix that illustration with different types of words. So the idea of the physical experience of this is that you actually follow the path. You see the numbers 1 to 53, you don't exactly know what they represent. You follow it through, you come to a barrier. There's nothing to see behind this barrier, but you break through the barrier and you're immediately drawn to the left because the left is so enormous relative to the right. And as you circle around, you realize the tiny pinprick that is the 5 to 1 that's for developing countries. You look to the left with the 53 different sheets, you were lifting those and finding and discovering things. The people who went in said that they did find that quite overwhelming, which was a bit intentional, that you're so overwhelmed by the 53 ratio to realize how small the 1 ratio is compared to that, and also to realize how much is hidden from citizens.
Okay, we were given a table to work with, so we thought that we would use it to illustrate what people commonly associate with migrants, people crossing water in a boat. And then, that these people could be taken out and used physically by participants to just place on a map to show where they think migrants either come from or where they go to, but just to give people something physical to work with that was also part of an illustration. But also using larger and smaller lettering, how it can emphasize things, how using a couple of different colours can really portray something that's eye-catching and helps the information to pop.
Next, we are exploring metaphor, another of the core tools within visual facilitation. Metaphor is so important. It helps us to make sense of the new by relating it to something we already know. We can use photo packs or illustrated cards to ask individuals how they see an issue. Is it like a tree? Is it like a machine? This kind of activity allows diversity of perspectives to be heard. We can use metaphor to design visual templates or teaching aids to help a group navigate a process. We can use metaphor to bring a conversation about strategic planning, visioning, or whatever to life. Participants here are designing a context map, using metaphor to help them in a hypothetical scenario where they are introducing development education to a new group, and it is fun, engaging and memorable. Finally, participants are doing a recap on all the tools they now have in their toolkit, and we brainstorm how we might put them into practice in our real life scenarios.
So the great thing about visual facilitation is that it's not art, and there's no requirement to be an artist. There's just a requirement to be curious and open and to be willing to try things.
The principles of head, hand and heart that undergird this program are really important when it comes to graphic harvesting for development education, because everybody learns in different ways, but unless people's head for the information, their hands to move about in a physical way, and also their hearts, their value systems are impacted by what we do, it's unlikely that there will be any change or any true critical thinking.